What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the Lions' newest cornerback, Quinton Dunbar, today, and kind of just break down what he brings to the table and why I am starting to believe this could be the best value signing the Detroit Lions have made this offseason. It could be. So let's get it started.
You know, I got to shout out DoseOfDion, man, because it was actually the first time I went live on YouTube. And, you know, guys don't know DoseOfDion. He put out a lot of good content for the Detroit Lions.
Welcome, everybody, to the video. Glad you guys are here. And man, I'm hyped. I'm hyped to talk about some Quinton Dunbar. And I think I have a lot of good information that I can share with you guys today. Not only just about the film, what he does well, what he doesn't do well, all that normal stuff, but also kind of the quick little brief summary of how Quinton Dunbar ended up with the Detroit Lions. Because I think if you don't know the background, you may not have the right idea about Quinton Dunbar and what he could actually do for the Detroit Lions next season, okay? So one of my goals in this video was not only to, see what he does well and things like that, but also to understand, one, why he was traded to Seattle in the first place after coming off a great season with Washington, and number two, what happened, because last year was really bad. It was his worst year up to date in his career. So I was trying to figure out those kind of things while also watching his film, and I think we have some good stuff to talk about. So let's just dive right into it. Quinton Dunbar is a 28-year-old cornerback that is 6'2", 202 pounds, so he gives you some good size, out of Florida, where he went from the wide receiver position to the cornerback position in the NFL. He was with Washington all his career up until last year when he spent time with Seattle, and like I said, it was a terrible season for him statistically, and we're going to dive into that, but even further, it was just a rough season in general. But the first question I wanted to answer is, okay, why did the Washington football team, or at that time it was the Redskins, why did they trade this guy away for a fifth-round pick? Now, fifth-round pick is not bad, and I understand Washington wasn't very good, and they were bringing in a new coaching staff, so I guess it kind of made sense. But why would they trade this guy away that was coming off of one of the best cornerback seasons in the NFL? In 2019, he only played in 11 games as it was shortened by a shin injury, so around that knee area. Keep that in mind because we'll talk about that a little bit more. But he was shortened by that injury, but he still played in 11 games as an outside cornerback for Washington, mainly as their number two across from Josh Norman. And he was great, phenomenal. He allowed a 61.3 passer rating. He had the second highest PFF grade. He allowed a 60% completion percentage and only 10.9 yards per completion. I mean, he was really good. And the film even said that too when I went back and watched it. And he was also a great tackler as well, so no issues there. So I was wondering, why did they trade him? Well, my initial thought was, well, maybe it was just because of the injuries. And that was part of it. But another reason they also traded him apparently is because Quinton Dunbar was unhappy with his situation with the Washington, football team now. So I'm assuming that actually had a lot to do with it. The thought was when he was traded to the Seattle Seahawks that Seattle was going to bring him in and basically kind of do what, Philadelphia did with Darius Slay. The trade and sign, right? You trade him and then you sign him to this extension. That was the thought. That was going to happen with Quinton Dunbar. He would come in, they'd let him see him play the whole season, see how he does. And the expectation was he would get a big contract going into 29 years old, and boom, there he go. Just like, a lot of cornerbacks when they get that final big deal because he was coming off such a great season. But that's not how it happened. So he was traded for a fifth-round pick. He wasn't super happy with his, base salary being just over $3 million. And I think what actually went down here when you look at how his contracts worked out, he signed the contract in 2017, a 3-year, $5.7 million deal. And I'm thinking what happened is it was fine until 2019 when he realized how well he actually did play. And he's like, wait, I should be getting paid more than this. So he wanted to go elsewhere. And Seattle brought him in. And again, the thought was that they were going to give him this contract once they brought him in. But that didn't happen. He missed time. The offseason was a mess. He was injured, and he didn't get that big contract. And then he hit free agency, and he didn't play that well. So let's kind of go through the story of events here. So the offseason, he's still dealing with an injury. He's not super healthy, so he's missing training camp, things like that. He's missing time. Then he gets arrested in the offseason, which the charges were eventually dropped, but he's arrested in the offseason, which is, off the field kind of issues. And then he shows up to training camp reportedly out of shape. He starts, however, for Seattle week 1 because, he was expected to be a really big part of that defense, and he doesn't play that well. And he plays for the first 6 games, I should say, for the Seattle Seahawks that season, and he doesn't play that well. And after the sixth game he plays in, which was against Buffalo, where they allowed 44 points, during the midweek, they decided that he would be out for the rest of the season and he would have surgery on his knee. So when I was looking at this, I was like, what happened? Did he have a big head? Was he just, kind of coasting through? Like, what actually went wrong? And I think some of those could be part of it, but really what happened here, and Pete Carroll, I think, said it best, is the guy was never healthy. Quinton Dunbar was never healthy in 2020, and all of the articles I've read have said that exact same thing. And once you read that and you start to watch him on the field, you can kind of see the signs of him just not looking right. You can definitely see it, especially against Buffalo, like I said, which was his last game. So against Buffalo, he wasn't healthy. He was hobbling around the field. He was playing, but he had to play because Seattle was missing 2 other cornerbacks, so they had to have him on the field. They needed some help there at that cornerback position. So he said, I'm going to push through it. I'm going to go out there and fight. And he tried, but it was bad. And even Pete Carroll said himself, Josh Allen was just targeting him. He was just going right at him constantly. And really, it was just a really bad game for him overall. He couldn't get out of breaks. He couldn't get into positions that he needed to get in. And it was just a rough game. Eventually, he was pulled out of that game. Like I said, during that week, they would put him on IR. They end the rest of the season and say, hey, he's going to go get that knee fixed. That's actually Pete Carroll's words. He's going to get that knee fixed. He was not 100%. Tried really, really hard, but he just can't get over the hump. So the way that Pete Carroll makes it sound is this guy tried hard, everything that he could do to possibly play, but even through the offseason, up and through the season until he was placed on IR, the guy was just not healthy. And if you watch that Buffalo game, you can kind of see the signs that this guy didn't look right. And he looked slow. And it was actually interesting because before I read this stuff, I was taking notes and I was like, man, he looks slower, reportedly showing out of shape. That could have been something to do with the injury, but the off-the-field concerns obviously are an issue as well. But he did look slower, and I was like, is that just because he's out of shape? Like, he's not coming out of breaks faster? He's giving tons of cushion? I'm like, what is going on? And I was like, change of direction is bad. I was writing all this down. I'm like, this wasn't an issue the year before. And then I read this and I start watching, like, oh, I kind of see what's going on here. Not saying you should blame all of that on it, but there definitely is a lot of blame to go around for that injury, because when you watch that Buffalo game, the guy is giving monster cushion. I'm not talking 10 yards. I'm talking 15, 20 yards. I'm not coming out of breaks. This guy is just giving a huge amount of space because he can't cover deep. He can't cover deep. He can't get in and press. He has to make sure that he gives tons of cushion. That way, after the catch is made, he can go down and make a tackle. He's not breaking on routes like he used to. With Washington, this guy was jumping on routes. He wasn't doing that. He was just kind of staying back, waiting for it to happen, and then trying to go down and make a play. And he still had his tackles because he was just giving up a lot of yards. It was an awful season for him. And it doesn't make sense that a guy that isn't getting off a big contract, but just got traded, that would have his worst season coming off his best. It just did not make sense. Something was not adding up here. And a lot of it had to do with an injury because he just did not look healthy. And that's the reason why Seattle said, hey, you're done for the season. We got to let you get that knee fixed. That's just not right. But then the off-the-field stuff apparently didn't help. Of course, that didn't help. And Seattle elected not to re-sign him. Now, a big part of this is because some of their young guys stepped up. Reed was a big guy for Seattle that stepped up and played well. And the thought was they could have still re-signed him this offseason. They ultimately decided not to, even though Pete Carroll hinted that he would have liked to bring him back during the offseason. They did not do that. So, they might be going with the younger guys instead at this point. But for Dunbar, it's a very unfortunate situation. A guy that was thinking, I'm going to get this big extension, I'm going to be locked up for a while, all of a sudden has a really rough year because he just cannot stay healthy. And if you don't know that part of his game, you would just think, man, he was just terrible. But yeah, he probably did play a little bit worse. He just did not look right. There was something about it. I was like, how does this guy take this big of a drop? It's not normal to go from one of the best cornerbacks to just completely abysmal. I mean, that doesn't make any sense. I mean, taking a drop is one thing, but that far is another. How bad his balance was, how much he was stumbling. He was just tripping over himself after plays. He just looked like he was just walking weird. And like I said, they ultimately pulled him out of the game and were just like, dude, you can't finish this game. Seattle had to go with it because they weren't healthy either at cornerback, so they kind of had to have a pad to play him. And eventually they said, hey, we got to pull you. You don't look right. Shut down for the season. You got to get that knee fixed. And Pete Carroll also said that they were trying to, have him adjust to the scheme because it was different, and they were still trying to work with him and figure it out. The thought was when they signed him that it wouldn't take a long time to adjust because he was so similar for their scheme fit. So some of that was because he missed so much time in practice and training camp that he wasn't completely adjusted to the scheme, and you could see that he was lost on certain plays. He was just in the wrong position, and there was a lot of miscommunication, which didn't happen that much at Washington. But also, I think some of that was because of the injury. They were trying to find a different way to play him, which was not being as physical and aggressive, but instead him giving tons of cushion. And the hope is now that Detroit Lions have signed him that he will be able to come back next season and be healthy, because there's so much to like when this guy is healthy. And I can definitely see why Seattle made this trade to bring him in. Washington probably could have maybe got more in return, but they didn't, maybe because of the age. And because even up to that point, he still did have injury issues. It just was around the knee area. It was the shin, as I mentioned. But last season, it was the knee. That will be one of the biggest questions for the Detroit Lions is, can he come back next season and can he be healthy? Because if he can be healthy, you could get a really nice value here. The Lions, like I said, could be looking at their best value signing because it's a one-year deal like many of their other deals. But the thing is, Dunbar, his ceiling is so high because he's shown us. And man, the guy in 2019, when he was right, wow. I was like, really? Wait, I don't know how much money we gave this guy still, but this guy looks really good. And I guess that's why PFF thought he'd still get a 2-year, $12 million after coming off his worst season, because, you know, they knew what happened last season. They knew the injuries that he was dealing with and how good he was when he was at his best. I mean, this guy looked really good at the outside cornerback position, because my initial thought was, well, maybe they tried to play him at slot or something a ton. No, they let him play outside. He just looked bad. So now let's talk about 2019. So after watching 2020 and writing down all these gripes about his game and then learning about the injury, I really had to watch 2019 because that's where I started. And I was very impressed with how many things that he can do. And this is what I'm saying. This could end up being the best value side. If he comes back and he's right next season, even if he doesn't give you all 16 games, for what he can do on the field when he is healthy, wow. And Washington was not a good team when he was there, right? 2019 Washington was not very good. That game that we played against Washington in 2019, remember when they beat us by 3 because Jeff Driscoll was our quarterback, it was 1916. They were not a good team that season. But the 11 games that he played, he looked really good in all of those games. Not perfect, but really good. And I think the stats clearly back up his play on the film. So let's start off with what I like. Okay, let's start off as a run defender. One of the best run defenders out there. And just like Corn Elder, just like Jeff Okudah, and I think Amani can be another great run defender from the cornerback position. The size is there, clearly at 6'2", 202. He's not going to be undersized on the outside, on the boundary, making tackles. But man, he will go up and make tackles. He will go make tackles. He'll flash inside. He actually played more in the box than the slot cornerback position last year with Seattle. He'll go in the box, make tackles. He'll take on running backs. He's nice in the open space. He breaks down. He's got really nice technique there. He's a formed tackler. He's a really good tackler. Very good tackler. And the one thing that didn't struggle in 2020 when he was injured was his run defense grade. It did drop a little bit, but it still was solid because he's just overall really good tackler, and he has the perfect mentality that you want from a guy that's going to be tackling. I think that's the first thing that actually flashed off the screen to me, because the second play of the 2019 season, this guy was helmet to helmet, clapping it up in one of the receivers' face. That's the kind of player he is. He's got ridiculous amount of energy. He's a feisty cornerback. He's just an aggravator quarterback. I mean, he's just probably annoying. I feel like he's the annoying cornerback, and I think that's what you want in a corner. Not receivers. You want that in your corner. You want your corner to be annoying, get in the receiver's head, right? Richard Sherman was known for that a long time. That guy was annoying. He talked a lot. People hated it. Oh my gosh, all he does is talk. But he was really good at that time in his career. He's still really good. And I think that's what Dunbar brings. Dunbar has that same attitude. This guy is talking the whole time. He's clapping the whole time. He's got the energy right from the very get-go. And the fact that on the second snap, I see this guy go helmet to helmet with the receiver, I'm like, what the heck is going on? Literally nothing has happened yet. That's the kind of player and the attitude that they're getting in Detroit. And I don't think that's a bad thing. It's fine to have those guys that are, quiet. I'm good with that. I think that's fine to have those guys that are just really locked in. But it's also good. It's also not a bad thing to have guys that talk, especially if they can back it up. They're backing on the field. If they're talking and they're getting burnt and they keep talking, it's like, okay, hey, you should be quiet because he's literally just going off on you. But Dunbar wasn't getting burnt in 2019 like that. He was phenomenal in 2019, and he knew it. And he had all the confidence in the world, like I said, from the very start with Washington. I mean, there was no lack of confidence in any of his games. So run defender, really good there. He's actually not a blitzer, which is kind of strange. He's got solid speed. He actually came out of his pro day, ran a 4.44, but obviously that was years ago, so I don't know if he's that fast anymore. But he's not a blitzer. They don't use him in blitz. He blitzed 0 times 2019, 0 times 2018. He blitzed 5 times in 2020. I don't think he had a sack. They don't blitz him for whatever reason. Probably a lot because he doesn't play at slot. It's a long way to blitz from the outside cornerback position. So I don't know if we'll see that from the Detroit Lions. It's probably also a schematic thing not to blitz him. We'll see if the Lions bring him on any. I think as a tackler, and because, just how aggressive he is, he could be maybe more of a blitzer, but they haven't used him like that in the past. So maybe that's something that we start to see with the Detroit Lions, but at least that's one thing that he hasn't had. But in coverage, man, just like a run defender, he's also really solid in coverage. Again, this is looking at the 2019 season, okay? That's what I'm talking about. Because 2019 was last time he was actually healthy. And in coverage, he was really good as well. Now, like I said, he was the number 2 cornerback across from Josh Norman. So that is a factor, right? It's a factor. But in the NFL today, there's a lot of good receivers out there. You have to have another really nice cornerback opposite. If you don't have another cornerback opposite, you're going to get burnt. You're going to get beat all day. You have to have 2 good cornerbacks on the boundary. And he was that for Washington. He was that other really nice cornerback. And like I said, they weren't getting the same type of pass rush that they had in 2020. All right, this wasn't that kind of team. 2019 was not 2020 for Washington. Zone, played a lot of cover 3 zone. You expect the Lions run, with the single high deep safety, things like that. He could also venture off into cover 2. You'll see that as well. He could play deep, drop shallow in coverage. But as a zone guy, he's really good in zone because like the best zone coverage guys are, he does just a phenomenal job of seeing ball and seeing man, okay? Being able to see the quarterback, read the quarterback's eyes, anticipate things, but also knowing where things are on the field. He flow off until the next guy that's going to across his face. All right, he's just flowing all over the field. It makes it very difficult for a quarterback because at the same time, he's reading them. He's watching their eyes, and that's where his interceptions came from. His interceptions come from him watching the quarterback's eyes. The quarterback maybe stares something down for too long, and he throws it there, and he just walks right in position.
Here's one of my favorite plays. He's out here at the top of the screen playing the outside cornerback position. This is in zone. And watch from the absolute get-go, he's watching Carson Wentz's eyes. Right away, look, he's already got his eyes on the quarterback. He's just waiting. And he's got a great feel. He knows where his guy is, also seeing the quarterback's eyes, and he jumps down and makes his play on a seam route. This is a heck of a play.
And I think one of the best games I saw again in 2019 was against us, our Detroit Lions. He went against Jeff Driscoll, of course. It wasn't Stafford. But, you know, it still was Kenny Golladay and Marvin Jones Jr. And when you watch that game, he's matched up against Golladay. He's matched up against Marvin. And, yeah, he gave up some receptions. You know, against Kenny Golladay, he got beat a couple times, but Galladay's tough. Galladay's really long, he's tough, but he was a good matchup for him because he was not backing down. The guy is aggressive in man coverage. He will get right in your hip. He's going to play very physical at the point of attack. He's got a lot of pass breakups every single year in his career. He's very physical with Golladay, and he had really good length to help out on the outside. One thing Cornelder lacked was length, so that's maybe pushes him way more to slot, not outside. Quinton Dunbar has length, so he plays well as an outside cornerback, and it really helps him slide off against tight ends, things like that, because he can also stay physical with those guys. Just want to stop in real quick to let you guys know that if you guys were ever interested in investing in our favorite sports teams, like us as Detroit Lions fans, you guys should check out www.symbol.app. It's a way to basically invest in your favorite sports team and earn a payout when your team wins. So for us as Detroit Lions fans, now we can finally invest in something that we actually know. And with the draft coming up very soon, this is your opportunity to get involved. You guys can use promo code DOD for a $10 bonus deposit. Check it out.
And I really like this zone coverage play from Dunbar. He's at the bottom of the screen here. He kind of just, works between two different options for Jeff Driscoll, and he just forces him to hold on to the ball too long. So he takes away the initial option, which is, I think that's Kenny Golladay on the bottom of the screen here. He takes that initial option away, physical right here out of the break. And then he slides down as Driscoll scrambles out of the pocket, takes away that look, and he just kind of works his way back and forth. Driscoll has to hold on to the football too long, and he ends up getting hit.
But, yeah, he gave him some plays. You see him shooting down, trying to make some plays. Sometimes that works against him. He'll shoot down, try to be a playmaker, try to make a play on the ball, try to jump down on a route and get a pass breakup, and sometimes he'll miss and it goes for something. But the battle between him, Marvin Jones, and Golladay was awesome to watch. I mean, it really was.
I think this was arguably the play of the game. Here at the top of the screen, working against Kenny Golladay. Watch how effortlessly he switches off, and this is what vets are supposed to do. Unfortunately, ours didn't really do this for us. They're going to run across the Lions will here, and watch him just switch off effortlessly. Driscoll is about to throw the ball, takes away Marvin Jones to the back of the end zone. That little switch is huge that we didn't have last year. Last year, that's a touchdown. For Dunbar, takes that away, and now Driscoll's in trouble. That was a huge play in the end zone.
And he had the last laugh. He gave him a couple of receptions, a couple bigger ones to Golladay there. He made some nice plays. He had a really nice one on T.J. Hockenson where he jumped down. He played just extremely physical. Right at the point of attack, just takes a big hit and jars the ball loose. But then you watched him on the final play. It's 3rd and 9. Detroit Lions, Washington football team tied at 16. Lions had the ball about their own 40-yard line. About 50 seconds to play in the game. And Quinton Dunbar comes with the interception that basically makes it so Washington can hit a walk-off field goal and beat the Lions on the road. Now, again, this isn't Stafford, and it was not the best job by Driscoll because he did stare the route down a little bit too long. He started the opposite way, but he started to stare it down too long, and you could just see Quinton Dunbar. I mean, he just walks right in front of the route. He just sits there, sees him look there, and he basically just walks right in front of the receiver and picks it off, makes it look easy.
I really like this angle. I think it kind of shows you, but Jeff Driscoll does a bad job. He turns way too early to where he's going with the football, and Dunbar just is in front of it. So he starts right for a split second right here, but he knows he's going back to Golladay, and he stares it down too long, and Dunbar sees the quarterback size, even in man coverage. He just walks in front and intercepts this effortlessly, and that was the game.
And that's kind of how that battle went. It was back and forth, and that's the kind of cornerback that I want. Someone that can battle with Marvin and Golladay is someone that I want on my team because those are two phenomenal wide receivers that are tough to match up with, and he has the size to do it. Now, he also has the speed as well. You can see it. You can see his closing speed is there, crosser routes, deep crossers. He's got the ability to run down and play very fast. Like I said, 4 40, but you can see the speed there to play the outside cornerback position on deep crossers, things like that, underneath shallow routes, that if he just has a second, he can work his way back into those plays. He's not the fastest cornerback, but he does have some speed. I don't know if he's much of a quickness guy as he's more physical as a cornerback.
Now here he is lined up in the slot, and I don't love him here as much as I like him on the outside, but he does show you that he can do it. This was a great one. I thought this was great. You can see the quickness to really just stay with him through all the moves here. And he's going to really undercut this route and make a play on the football. So nice job there, staying with him. Then here's the break, but he sticks right in his hip pocket. Daniel Jones makes that throw, undercuts it, and he knocks it down. He actually picked that off. I can't remember.
There's a very important point I have to make about this. So you look at that 2019 season, and we can basically guarantee that the issue in 2020 was the injury, because there was an instance in that first week where against Philadelphia, I would say midway, maybe in the third quarter, he ended up getting injured. And it was a non-contact injury. It was like on an out route, hobbled him a little bit. And I think he missed a couple of plays, but he ended up finishing that game. But when he was on the field after that, he started to give a lot of cushion. And you noticed it. And they started attacking him in zone and in man. Against Jackson, you could see he was giving a lot more cushion. He wasn't being as aggressive or physical. And that's exactly what you saw in 2020. After that first game against Philly, he missed some time. He was out for like 2 or 3 weeks before he came back to the team. So we saw the exact same thing happen, just in a smaller window in 2019. His positioning is great. Being a former receiver, you can kind of see sometimes he looks like the receiver on the field. He kind of boxes out the wide receiver, gets himself in position, and basically just makes the play. His positioning is phenomenal, though. He just reads the quarterback side at such a high level, and I think that helps him be a ball hawk and be a playmaker because he was a former receiver. He attacks the football like a receiver, the ability to finish off a play. Some quarterbacks can get in position, but they don't have hands. Like, well, that's why you play defense. The guy has hands, right? He can come down and finish off those plays.
A few more clips that I want to show you. He undercuts routes really well, so watch him on the top of the screen here off this double move. A little bit behind, but undercuts it, knocks it away. Gets his hand on the football. Here's another one. Top of the screen, one-on-one, throw this. This was offensive pass interference, knocks it away. And then finally, bottom of the screen against Carolina. Watch him undercut this route, back of the end zone, knocks it away. Huge play.
Here, they're getting a phenomenal talent that fits the scheme really well, can press, can drop in his zone, can give cushion, come down and make plays. He's going to be aggressive. He's going to be a tone setter in the back end, in my opinion. Phenomenal run defender that just needs to be right. So the biggest question for him will be, does he come back in 2020 healthy coming off of surgery? Is that what the Lions are going to get? If they get that, the Lions may have a tremendous value here, because I don't know how much money they gave him, but for a one-year deal, they could be looking at a really nice player. They could be looking at a lot of help here. And there's not many guys out there. I don't know if there's any cornerback this offseason that you could have signed for a one-year deal that had the upside that this guy has. Okay, because he's already shown it. He's just had an injury, so he needs to come back healthy. And he's had injuries in the past, so you're pretty much, you're likely going to have him miss some games. But like we talked about yesterday, this guy is trying to get a big contract, whether that's with the Lions or someone else. This is his opportunity to do it. So he's getting like his one shot. He's got that chip on his shoulder. He knows about the injury, the fact that Seattle never gave him that deal that he wanted to get. Now he's got an opportunity with Detroit to kind of just go back out there and be like, hold up, here's who I am. And I think the mindset that he brings is perfect. The Lions wouldn't bring in competitors. They brought in a competitor in Quinton Dunbar. You guys are going to like this guy. I mean, I think we're going to like this guy a lot. We're going to love having this guy outside at corner. I'm just hoping he's healthy, because if he can be healthy, wow. Wow. But will he be healthy? That's the question. So let me know your thoughts, comments below, man. I'm excited to see Dunbar. This guy's legit when he's going. Thank you, Brad, for watching, and I'm out.